Almost at the end of the year, time to express gratitude and reflect on the things we hope to change about ourselves in the upcoming year. It is never too late to start over. This time, you're starting from a point of experience. Hello there, thanks for joining us for another edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. You may be at home unwinding from all those Christmas festivities and now setting those New Year's resolutions. Let us keep your company with these educational features. Stick around as we take you through another half hour geared to keep you informed.
Once upon a time in a Caribbean island known for its rich culture and natural beauty, lived a group of people who were buried in piles and piles and more piles of paper. Papers spanning back to the start of time. Then came a bright idea, harnessing technology to work smarter and not harder. The government of Jamaica is improving its operations to serve citizens better. Many services are now available online, and there's more to come. The government of Jamaica, building a better public sector for all.
Thanks for staying with us. Diabetes can happen to any one of us. It does not matter the age or gender, but your lifestyle choices play a major role. To prevent the heart complications that can arise from diabetes, please watch our next feature.
Diabetes is a common illness. Most of us may be aware of its various complications, such as diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, diabetic kidney disease, and so on. But when it comes to deaths caused from diabetes, cardiovascular complications account for the majority. Diabetes is recognized as one of 4 major factors for developing cardiovascular disease, the others being hypertension, obesity, and cigarette smoking.
About 68% of persons over the age of 65, and this is data now from the American Heart Association, 65% of persons over the age of 65 who have diabetes will die from heart disease, and about another 16% will die of stroke.
Before we take a look at how to manage or even prevent cardiovascular complications of diabetes, let us look at how persons come to develop the disease.
In a nutshell, what generally happens is that diabetic persons have a more rapid rate at which fat and cholesterol is deposited in the arterial system. So we all have that. It's considered part of the process of aging. Fat and cholesterol is being laid down in our arteries. However, diabetic persons tend to have that happen at a more rapid rate. Okay? And as a result of that, what tends to happen is that diabetic persons will progress to a point where they have compromised vessels. So in other words, the lumen, the diameter of the vessel, is narrowed, the flow of blood is limited.
And as the heart muscles become starved of blood, various acids accumulate and persons will tend to experience what is called angina, or a type of chest pain.
You may get complete blockage of the vessel, which may now result in what is called a heart attack.
Heart tissues are not meant to function in an environment where the blood sugar level is elevated. And so, another incidence of diabetic cardiovascular complication results where high blood sugar levels in persons who are diabetic becomes directly toxic to heart cells. This impairs the ability of blood vessels to open normally under conditions of stress, such as exercise, and also causes inflammation and impaired clotting of the blood.
So if they're chronically exposed to those levels of elevated blood sugars, then there are biochemical consequences. There's weakness of the heart muscle, and patients, many of them, go on to developing heart failure and so on.
The diagnosis of cardiovascular complications is more difficult in diabetics, where the symptoms appear unclear or may be different from the non-diabetic patient. Take, for example, a non-diabetic person with, say, coronary heart disease.
Generally, they will say, well, look, doc, I felt pressing pain to the center of my chest. It's moving down my left arm. It comes on with activity. It stops when I stop engaging in whatever activity. It feels like a weight or like a pressure, like a squeezing sensation, and it's associated with other things like shortness of breath and so on. Diabetics, however, have a particular problem because they have damage to the nerves, and therefore they may not actually experience chest pain at all. If they do, it may not be the typical angina which we would normally expect a patient to describe. Okay, so oftentimes diabetic patients who are having cardiovascular disease will say that, doc, I just feel a little funny sensation in my chest, a little discomfort, I just feel short of breath, or I'm walking up the stairs, or I'm running after my grandkids and I find that I'm just out of breath.
The rest of the diagnostic process, however, is similar and may include an echocardiogram, ECG, blood works, or various stress tests accessible at public health facilities and at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. Generally, diabetic patients will have elevated blood sugars in their urine, which, if identified, serves as a red flag and need for more specific testing. A urinalysis or urine dipstick test is generally done as part of school medicals, oftentimes as a screening test for diabetes. As with every illness, early detection and prevention is key to having good health.
It would be good every year for every person to be checked. If you're diabetic, you would have been told how often you need to check your blood sugar by your health professional. But if you're just doing checks and you're healthy otherwise, then at least once a year to check your cholesterol, your sugar, your blood pressure, do your ECG to see if there is any abnormality in the heart.
The treatment of cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients is more holistic, involving lifestyle changes to include diet, exercise, and maintaining a healthy weight.
In a nutshell, we advocate for, eating primarily fruits and vegetables, things like whole grains and nuts, limiting one's intake of fast foods with high fat content, high cholesterol, salt, and so on, and portion size management as well.
More unprocessed foods, less of the very refined high sugar foods. So there are those foods that are obviously very high in sugar. So the typical recommendation, if you look at a plate, half of the plate should be more plant-based foods, leafy vegetables, and some fruit.
In general, 150 minutes minimum per week of moderate exercise such as swimming, brisk walking, jogging, or cycling is recommended. Besides the lifestyle changes, clinical treatment through prescription drugs and surgical procedures is an important element in caring for persons with cardiovascular complications of diabetes.
We have medications to address symptoms. We have medications to prolong life. And that forms an important part of the approach. There are a variety of procedures which diabetic patients and other non-diabetic patients may qualify for, or it may be necessary to pursue. So we speak of things like stenting, for example, coronary artery bypass grafting, which is, of course, open heart surgery, major surgery. Diabetic patients we have a lower threshold for referring diabetics for that kind of procedure just because of the severity of their disease.
Medications developed primarily for use by diabetic patients have been shown to have significant cardiovascular benefits as they reduce the risk of death and complications related to cardiovascular disease in diabetic patients. But with most of them still under patent, access is quite costly. Your best treatment option is to adopt healthy lifestyle practices that make you less prone to developing diabetes or cardiovascular disease. Know your numbers and control the keys to a healthier heart. Know the numbers for your blood pressure, cholesterol level, blood glucose level, and your weight and body mass index. Find out the risks they represent and what you need to do to stay healthy. Talk to your doctor and start making healthy lifestyle choices to prevent a heart attack or stroke.
We all enjoyed those Christmas delectable dishes, right? Ranging from the fruit cake to the sorrel or even the sauce on the ham. But have you considered the sugar intake? You may plan to start the new year by eating healthy. A good start is deworming. We'll tell you how.
Deworming is the process of giving worm medicine to an individual to get rid of parasites such as roundworm and tapeworm. While the focus is usually on children, adults should also be dewormed. Consultant pediatrician at the Bustamante Hospital for Children, Dr. Sandrika Young-Peart, tells us why this process is important, signs to look for, and the impact of these worms to our health.
When we talk about worms, we're talking about multiple different types. We may talk about the roundworm, the pinworm, or we can talk about the whipworm. And these are just some of the few worms that exist. The worms can actually cause a disease burden on our society, and the complications of having worm infestations are numerous and problematic. It affects how our children may concentrate and may be able to learn. There are actually documented findings that it actually affects your cognitive and your physical development and your ability to concentrate in school. And so it's actually important that we actually rid our children of these parasites. According to the WHO, approximately 800 million children are actually affected by worms each year. So what are some of the signs that a person may have worms? Symptoms could be what we may commonly think about, like grinding of the teeth. They may be itching their anus, right? They may actually have weight loss. They may feel very tired and fatigued. And these are just some of the symptoms that may give you an indication that your child may have worm. They may not have any signs at all. Or they can have other signs and symptoms, such as vomiting, abdominal swelling or distension, diarrhea, or constipation. If the worms actually form balls, they can actually block the intestines, and that can either cause constipation and cause the child to vomit. They can also present with wheezing, and we may think they are actually asthmatics, but it's actually the worms that have migrated into the lungs to cause obstruction of the airway and cause the child to wheeze. So how do they get infected? They may get infected either by eating or drinking contaminated water or food. If there is inadequate or improper waste disposal, and if we don't wash our hands before we eat or drink food. And there's a particular worm that you can actually get if you actually walk barefooted. So that is also something to bear in mind. And so it's actually important that we actually give our children worm medicine so we can actually target getting rid of these worms and actually reducing the worm burden in our society. You can deworm your children twice per year. You should actually give them worm medicine, and all the persons who are in the household should also get the worm medicine at the same time. It is important that our adults also be treated or dewormed, because we can be asymptomatic, meaning that we don't have any symptoms at all, but we can still be carriers of worms. And when we excrete or pass our feces, especially sometimes when we do it inappropriately, we may pass out the eggs of these worms. Then our cows or poultry or pigs may actually ingest these when they feed. And then that's a vicious cycle. And should our children be playing in the areas where waste is inadequately disposed, then they too can actually pick up the eggs or the larvae on their fingers. And if they don't wash their hands before they eat, or while they're in the midst of playing, they may actually put their fingers in their mouth, then they too can actually ingest these worms. So how can you prevent your child from getting worms? It's difficult. But there are some basic tips that we can actually do to reduce the chance of our children getting these serious worm infections and having the complications. It's basic hand washing before eating our food, allowing our children not to walk barefooted, allowing our children not to play with the pets, especially if their pets are not treated quite frequently. And importantly, proper hygiene. Ensure that our waste is disposed properly. So it's pretty important that we all get on board as adults so we can actually reduce the worm burden and the impact on our society.
Flu season is here. Let's fight the flu with these tips. Stay up to date with recommended flu vaccines. Practice good hygiene, that is frequent hand washing and sanitizing, covering your mouth and nose when sneezing, and sanitizing frequently touched surfaces. You're also encouraged to eat a balanced diet, take vitamin and mineral supplements, stay hydrated, and stay away from persons displaying flu-like symptoms. Protect yourself this flu season.
Fish is a good source of protein and vitamins. We love to eat it, fried, steamed, baked, or even grilled. We also enjoy the succulent, mouth-watering fish that takes up almost the entire dish. But there is much more to know about fish, including the health benefits it provides. This next feature has all the information you need.
We all love our protein, chicken, beef, pork, but how often do we eat fish? Is it only at Easter time or when you're at the beach? Incorporating more fish into your diet can be very beneficial to your health. Compared to red meats and poultry, fish has far less calories and cholesterol.
It's the saturated fats and the trans fats that our bodies use to make cholesterol. And fish and seafood have very little saturated fat and trans fat. So in truth and in fact, that makes it a very healthy source of protein.
Fish also has iron, which is important for good reasoning and memory, iodine, which can prevent mental problems in children, and selenium, vitamins, and carotenoids, which are antioxidants. Who knew that we could get so many nutrients from fish? And that's not all. Incorporating fish into our diet can even reduce the chances of developing certain diseases.
Studies have in fact shown that people who have a higher intake of fish compared to other meat sources have less heart disease, they suffer from fewer mood disorders, and they have less cognitive decline with age, so less dementia.
This is due to omega-3 fatty acids, a nutrient that is only found in a few other food sources, such as walnuts and flax seeds. But oily fish, such as sardines, tuna, mackerel, salmon, and trout, are excellent sources of omega-3s and are readily available at your convenience in supermarkets. So we want to add fish into our diet. In what ways can we do this?
So escovitch fish is one of our favorites. Now the onions and the carrots and the vinegar and the pimento, that's all fine. But we don't want to do a lot of deep frying. Deep frying adds calories. Nothing like a nice steamed fish, a nice roast fish. And when you roast your fish, you can stuff it with wonderful vegetables like callaloo and so on. So we have to find other ways. Many of us have broilers as a part of our stove and we've never utilized it. We don't know how it's used. And that gives us, I think, the closest taste to fried without adding a lot of oil.
So we've got different styles of cooking the fish, but what about flavor? Jamaicans love adding salt, but fish is already salty. Wouldn't that be too much sodium?
If we utilize other things like lime and lemon juice and or fresh seasonings or scotch bonnet pepper or onions or scallion, we can make our fish flavorful without adding a lot of extra sodium.
That sounds really tasty, but watch out for bones. Make sure to debone fish before giving your children. Even if the fish is bought deboned, check for fine bones with your fingers. If you're not careful, you could end up with a medical emergency. The recommended serving size per week is only 8 to 9 ounces of fish, or 2 to 3 servings per week. With an array of health benefits and a variety of ways to cook it, don't miss out on this lifestyle choice. Make a positive impact on your health by adding more fish to your diet.
Jamaicans consume on average 9 to 12 grams of sodium or salt per day, twice the World Health Organization recommended amount of less than 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of salt, and more ideally, less than 2 grams of sodium per adult per day from all food sources. This excess salt in the diet causes high blood pressure, kidney and bone damage, gastric cancer, obesity, and worsening of asthma. Reduce the amount of salt you consume to no more than 3 to 5 grams, or half to 1 teaspoon per day for adults, and less than 2 grams for children under 11 years of age. Let's shake the salt habit and live healthy. A public service message from the Jamaica Information Service.
The lush green trees are beautiful by nature. They provide oxygen and are homes for the birds and bees. Their branches spread their wings and provide shelter for those in need. The breeze caresses the leaves as they dance from the west to the east. Trees are a blessing to the earth, and they blossom where they are planted. Let us find out more about one of them on this next leg of the journey. During a stroll down any Jamaican road in the summer, prepare to be stunned by the natural beauty of one of the planet's most beautiful trees. Its flaming red, orange or yellow flower sets it apart from the other flora around. When the wind caresses its umbrella-shaped crown, its pods make an enthralling sound. Oh yes, you've encountered the prismatic poinciana.
It's a very popular tree in Jamaica, and it's been planted for over 100 years.
Delonix regia is a flowering member of the bean family. It's known here in Jamaica as the royal poinciana. Other parts of the Caribbean call it flamboyant, flame of the forest, or flame tree. A native of Madagascar, a country off the coast of the African continent, this striking plant is a feature of many Caribbean landscapes. It is also common in the tropical parts of Asia, the Pacific and Australia, as well as North, Central and South America. The royal poinciana is the official tree of Key West, Florida. It has also been the long-standing national flower of St. Kitts and Nevis. Not surprising then that it would take its name from the man who is believed to have introduced the plant to the region, St. Kitts and Nevis's first French governor, Philippe de Poincy.
It came to us via St. Kitts and was introduced at around the same time that Castleton was formed as a botanical garden. So it got here at the same time with some other legumes, meaning trees that are in the bean family. So it's in the same section of the bean family as, say, thinking toe, which a lot of people know, and logwood.
This evergreen plant grows tall and fast, reaching heights of up to 12 meters in 6 years under favorable conditions. The royal poinciana's trunk can be wide but not overly large, as it produces a light flimsy wood. Its bark is usually smooth and straight, but may extend into several stalks and grows low with regular pruning. The tree's big green buds burst open to reveal large showy pentamerous petals, complete with its fruit protruding through its center. This legume starts out soft, small and green, then ripens into a long, hard wooden brown pod.
The seeds are large, which means that they have enough food stored to just exist in a room at ambient temperature.
The plant grows easily from seeds or cuttings. As a member of the legume family, the The leaves of the royal poinciana are compound in nature, comprising of several little leaflets. These fern-like leaves form a dense, unmistakable umbrella-like canopy, a well-needed respite from the hot summer sun.
Because the flowers are so showy and conspicuous, lots of people like to plant it. Over the years, we have had it in many parks, and it has generally reproduced itself in any possible space that it finds suitable.
Though revered for its ornamental quality, the pods of the royal poinciana are also ideal for art and craft. You can make necklaces, bracelets, or art pieces by dabbing it with some paint. You may get a percussion instrument by shaking the pods, or you can make an actual maraca by placing the seeds into a calabash.
There are also studies of the chemical compounds found in the seed, but that's strictly an academic exercise. I gather from some searches that some folks in the Central American area use it medicinally.
If you're interested in brightening up your piece of the rock with this flaming forest flower, then here are some things you may need to know. While incomparable in its beauty, the royal poinciana is an insect magnet. It's prone to termite infestation and has its own caterpillar that turns into a moth along its bark. And this tree sheds, so depending on how you view the world, it could be a messy pile of flowers or your own summer snow. Due to its dense shade, the royal poinciana may prevent the growth of other trees. Its extensive root system may also pose a threat to your sidewalks.
It's a tree that needs to be tended if you're going to put it in your yard. But it's worth it because in a good year of blooming, it is rather spectacular.
If you're still mesmerized by this statement piece, you may purchase a plant with a color of your choosing from the forestry department. As we anticipate the new year, remember to give thanks in everything you do. Remember, too, that you have total control over the things you say. This is where we close the chapter on today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Be sure to join us again tomorrow on this station for all the information you need to know. Until then, visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for this and more offerings. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson, wishing you a happy new year and a peaceful 2024 when it comes.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.